welcome, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I'm so thankful that you are taking a few moments out of your time this Sunday evening to speak with me and my guests. On this show, we always try to talk about the latest topics that will make you think, to engage you, and ultimately make you vote in your best interest. If this is your first time, I'm Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional with a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, we're going to discuss the problems President Biden is facing in the presidential election. We're going to further our discussion that we had last Sunday night, on the erosion of civil rights and the weaponization of the word woke and DEI programs. And last but certainly not least, I want my panelists to answer this question for me. Where are our legacy organizations, the NAACP and the National Urban League? I only hear silence from them, but I think that perhaps our thought leaders that we have on tonight can inform us on what they're doing. So up first, we have Latrice Davis. Latrice is a regular to the show. She is a senior court clerk at the Queens County Criminal Court now. She is an appointed member of the Queens Community Board 6. She has served on the Aging, Social Services, Disabilities Committee, and the Land Use, Housing, and Landmarks Committee. She's also served on Transportation and Street Safety, and the committee that I think is so critical, all of them are critical, the Committee for Those Without Shelter. And Latrice is in New York, so if you've been keeping up with the news about what's going on in New York with the migrant population being shipped there and what have you, she's got her hands full in her borough. She was named the committee chairwoman for that particular committee in April of 2022. She is a former Associated Press reporter from New York, graduate of NYU. Welcome back to the show, Latrice.
As always, Pam, thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. And next we have Marcia Brown Williams. Hey, Marcia. Marcia is a master educator and curriculum specialist. She is the executive director and board member of Shaping America's Youth, Project SAY, a mentoring program to help minority youth develop life skills. She is a proud alum of Spelman College, and she resides in Illinois. Welcome back to the show, Marcia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. And last but certainly not least, we have a very long time and dear friend of mine of 45 years, y'all. Dr. Ronald Charles, MD. You doing like this on us on that, huh? He is the chief medical officer of the Ingham Community Health Centers in Lansing, Michigan. Dr. Charles has worked in federally qualified community health centers as both a practitioner and as a CMO prior to this tenure in academic medicine as an assistant professor in internal medicine at Wayne State University, as the vice president of medical affairs for Centene Corporation as well. He is a fellow of both the American College of Physicians and the American College of Healthcare Executives. Dr. Charles is a native of Detroit, Michigan. He's my homeboy. A graduate of Cass Technical High School, the University of Michigan, and Wayne State University School of Medicine at LaSalle Regina University. He is a board certified internist, and he is my beloved frat brother. as a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Thank you for having me, Pam.
Absolutely, absolutely, guys.
Can I just say this to Dr. Charles? I had 2 uncles who were Phi Beta Sigmas, and my mother was Pam's sorority sister. Zeta
All
Phi.
right.
And
All
yes,
right.
because we are constitutionally bound.
I know.
Right.
Yeah, we
So
are.
I just had to mention that to you. So
That's great.
Yeah, okay. And Loretta Thomas Walker says good evening. My brother.
Hello, Loretta.
Yeah. And Dawn Daly Mack. Dawn, I'm glad that you're here because you know I'm talking about legacy organizations. So I immediately thought of you. All right. So let's get started here, guys. Latrice, I'm going to start with you. President Biden is slipping in the polls. It's no, we know he is. Okay, it's talked about. Many are people are just simply unenthusiastic about his campaign and him running. What are your thoughts? I'm going to ask each of you.
Okay.
Latrice.
Well, I appreciate you having me start this conversation because I do have some thoughts on it. I think first and foremost, Biden and the Biden administration, and that includes Vice President Harris, they have not done a good job of informing the people of what they have done since they have been in the White House over the last 3 years. They have made some accomplishments, whether it's getting a handle on, well, I mean, COVID's not over, but whether it's getting a handle on the pandemic, the infrastructure, the economy, they have addressed some things. Whether or not they've addressed those things to everyone's satisfaction is another conversation, but they have tackled those problems head on, but they have not done a good job of communicating that to the masses. And the reason I say that is because even now, during the campaign, all you hear is the former occupant of the White House.
Yes.
Last month on December 5th, the Washington Post did an article where Biden himself said, "Oh, if Trump wasn't running, I'm not sure I would be running." He did not. Now, I tweeted, and I stand by this tweet, that if this coming November turns out to be a replay of 2020, I will vote for Biden. I stand by that. However, the Democratic Party needs to get it through their head that that's not the flex they think it is.
No, it's not.
And the thing is okay, basically all you've been hearing is okay, okay, Biden, I'm not Trump. Or like assuming like if Harris was to become president, she's not Trump. And it's like, okay, that's all well and good. But guess what? I'm not Trump either. That doesn't like we've all gone through job interviews, and at some point in the job interview process, you get to the point where the interviewer asks you, why did you apply for this job? Why should I hire you? Or in this case, why should the voters vote for you? And they haven't really done a good job of giving an answer to that question. In this case, like I mentioned infrastructure, I mentioned the economy. They've made inroads on that front. Again, whether or not it's to people's satisfaction, that's a whole different conversation. But they have addressed those things. But they seem stuck on Trump.
Yeah.
And that's I think unfortunately that's going to be to their detriment.
Okay, Marcia, you next. Same question. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's amazing how the Democrats would eat our own. Republicans would just hold their nose and vote for the worst possible candidate because they're on their team.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to realize that not anybody can go in there and just snap their fingers and clap their hands and make all right with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody had that kind of power, they would be the president. Mm-hmm. But nobody even has that power, even in their own household. Mm-hmm. So why do you expect somebody to have the problems of the whole world on their shoulders to be able to make everything right with the world? Now, there are certain things that I think that Biden needs to take much more control of, which your other panelists spoke about in regards to the Democrats speaking about all the pluses that they have done during the time that President Biden has been president. but also captured about the kind of humanity that he has invoked on people in general. And though he wanted to make sure that we had student loan forgiveness,
Yes.
$10,000, you have to remember, we got a slim majority in the Senate. By the time he was trying to get this through, the House had flipped and it was run by Republicans.
Right.
And just like Obama had a lot of problems, President Obama had a lot of problems getting a lot of the things that he wanted passed because he had two houses of Congress that was run by Republicans. So unless he decided that he was just going to do like Trump said, kill his enemies and hope for the best that he doesn't get indicted for killing people, Obama had to make everything executive order, which Biden is looking at doing executive order.
Right.
And so instead of us complaining, we got to figure out, even within our own small networks, on a plan on how to get his message out and to speak about it. Now, this has been interesting to me because I was talking to one of my coworkers, and one thing that she said that got to me, and you have to be real calm with people like this, got to me. She says, well, I just don't speak about politics because politics doesn't affect me. I said, politics affects you on every
level
of your life.
Yes. Yes.
I said, and the way you think, that's why Jim Crow lasted so long. Yeah. Because we had too many people thinking like you. All we had to do is just stay quiet, don't make no noise, and nobody will come talk to you. Right. And my dad and my mom, they're Southerners. They went to HBCUs, and they were 20 years old, and they were fighting the big fight. And my dad and his frat brothers, they were 19, 20, 21-year-old guys. And they were trained by the then NAACP and the Thurgood Marshall, because he had come to their school, and addressing them to start their own protests in regards to eating at different eateries, right? My dad and his brothers, they got beat up pretty badly, but they did not give up.
Right.
And so, but with us, we want everything to be like a fast food restaurant. Get it done now. And when it's not done now, they want to lose great faith. We can't do that, because that's what the head devil wants us to do, named Trump and his band of followers. They want us to give up. They want us to throw in the towel and say, well, you know, he's an old guy. He can't get it done. And I'm thinking Trump is only 2 years younger than he is. And he's out of shape. At least Biden's in shape. You know, he ain't going to sleep. He ain't asking for a Big Mac and eating it in his bedroom. So, and he's got the intellect. And I kind of feel insulted when people talks about his age. And then you see people in news networks who are older than Biden still working. They don't even trust those white people's mindset who are 80 plus old in the newsroom who make the decision. They don't even question it.
We're going to get into that further with Dr. Charles with this whole age aspect to it. So, one, the same question, and as an internist, as a physician, what are your thoughts about a person at Biden's age doing such a demanding job?
So I'm making my notes here so I can make sure I have my comments on point, because these ladies are so dynamic. They're gonna give me a run for my money. So I mean, so some of my comments are, first of all, Democrats have to stop, as Ms. Brown Williams said, stop eating their own. What's the saying? Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. We need to stop criticizing our Democratic candidates. It's like last time I checked, the only perfect person that ever walked the earth was a man from Galilee. And we only know about the last 3 years. We don't know about those years between 12 to 30. So we need to, we need to understand that there is no such thing as a perfect candidate. And Biden has never stated that he was a perfect candidate. He's the perfect candidate maybe for these days and times that we're living in. But he's not a perfect candidate. He's not a perfect man. He has his failings, as we all do. So that's my viewpoint on that, and the need for Democrats to just look at the bigger picture and stop looking at the short-term gain and look at the long-term picture, because that's what the Republicans are doing. They're playing the long game, and that's why we now
always have
reversal of Roe v. Wade. That's why we have a Supreme Court that is stacked 6-3 with people. If you really look at those people on the Supreme Court, some of those people shouldn't even be on the court because they are not true jurists. They were people who got selected because of their views towards what they wanted to destroy, which was Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Which was affirmative action.
Right.
Which was, anything DI related. So that's that. Next, in terms of what else is Harris and Biden can only do so much talking about what they do. What we need is more surrogates for them to get out here and talk about the accomplishments that Biden and Harris have made, because they've, to everyone's point, they've done a lot. Maybe again, not to everyone's liking as far as they want them to go, but they have to work within the confines of the current Congress that they have.
Yes,
so they can only do so much, but they do need more surrogates, and there needs to be more people talking up their accomplishments. And I feel that that's something that we all who buy into the vision that Biden and Harris have for the country, we need to be evangelists for that. Yes. And we need to be talking to people. We need to be talking to our family, our friends, anyone that will listen. That's what our charge is. For those of us that are Christians, that's what our charge is that we go out and we speak the good news. So we need to do the same thing, use that same framework in terms of this political game that we're caught in right now.
Absolutely.
People need to understand the dynamics of dynamics in the world. Look. Sorry. No, that's my phone. I'm getting
live. These things happen.
A house call for a doctor. How fitting.
I'm getting a call from one of Pam's new sorors.
Oh.
I'm trying to see how do I get back on this?
You're on.
Am I on? But I can't see everybody else. So.
Oh.
Can you hear us at least? Can you hear us?
We see.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Okay.
Okay, because I can see and hear you just fine. So keep going.
We can see you.
Okay, so I'll just continue on. So people need to, part of what's disappointing to me about Americans is that we have lost, people do not understand the dynamics in the world. They only understand what's going on in their little sphere of the world, which is important. But you gotta, but you also have to understand what's going on in the greater context of the world, because there's other things going on in the world that are affecting your, that affect your life as well. Things like Ukraine, things like the Middle East, guess what? Things like China-U.S. relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That China-U.S. relationship is going to affect your everyday life as well. So we need to remember that and think about that as we, and try to get people to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be a student of history, because if you do not study history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Well, here's the problem. And here is the big problem. The big problem. The whole rolling back, and we're going to get into that next, about the whole rolling back of our civil rights, which starts with of the books. DeSantis has done a heck of a job with that whole drumbeat of banning books, woke, weaponizing the word woke, essentially saying black, all of those things. That it's all this coded language and what have you, and the activities that he does. But the thing is, guys, I was looking at the Iowa primaries, and they're talking about this for the Republicans, and it is amazing to me. I'm just in shock, really, and I think everybody is. I know the analysts are. Is that Trump has not missed a beat. He keeps rising in the polls.
I am not shocked by that.
It's a cult. It's a cult that we've got, It's insane.
But just think of this, though. In every other campaign in 20 and 18, where there was a big dominance of Republicans who followed Trump, who won the primaries,
mm-hmm.
They lost in the general election.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing was going on with Trump, because see, right now, he only has one group of people, the Trumpsters, who are willing to vote for him. Because I was thinking about something I read in Chicago Tribune and what I heard on MSNBC. When they were talking to people, they weren't that anxious. I mean, they weren't that, Trump. Now, granted, he does have a big following in Iowa, but there were a lot of people there saying they weren't even going to come to the caucus,
mm-hmm.
and that they had planned to vote for Biden, and they were Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
They see just how crazy Trump is. Now he's going to win the primary in Iowa. He's going to win that.
Mm-hmm.
But when he gets to the general election, like they did in 18 and 20. Those Republicans who were in Trump's corner 110%, from Arizona to New Mexico to every other state that had an election in 18 and 20,
mm-hmm.
their primary candidate lost those elections in the general election. So I'm thinking that might be a situation that may occur again, because remember, when Trump and Biden ran the first time against each other in 20, Biden was below in the polls. Mm-hmm. He was below. He was almost double digit behind in the polls.
And I want to piggyback on that, because here's the thing: when you think back on 2020, even though Biden won the election fair and square, the fact that Trump got as many votes as he did is a red flag, which is why I am not surprised at what we see now in January 2024. As the Who song goes, won't get fooled again. In 2015, when he first declared his candidacy, I'm like, knowing what I know about Trump, and I'm from New York, so I knew I knew Trump for what he was all along. And I'm like, there's no way he's going to be the last man standing.
I regret laughing. A
lot of people and I include myself in this. It's like, there's no way he's going to be the last man standing. I didn't take him seriously. And then even during the debates with Hillary, I'm like, it's clear he's out of his league. There's no way he's going to win. And then what happened November 8th? He won. So I learned from my mistake. And apparently,
and I think you don't need to say that you shouldn't put in a good fight against him. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I think more and more people are waking up to the grim reality, what would happen if he were to get a second term. And so even though he got a lot of people who voted for him in 2020, Biden beat him by 8 million people. And so the thing is, you can't lose faith. You got to work at it. And I work with MoveOn.org too. So I'm doing a whole lot of phone calls. Now today in Chicago it's a -8, so you guess where I was all day. But but we're out there canvassing, and we're out there canvassing in different parts of Illinois, Indiana, which is a lost cause, but Wisconsin and other general areas around Illinois. And just like I tell people, it's good to talk about it on social media, but you got to do a little bit more than that. Even if it's just 10 calls a day with an agency like MoveOn.org to get people to be convinced that this is the right man and the right time. We cannot try to figure out if it's going to work out. It's not going to work out for Black people if Trump was to get into office.
It's not
never. And so, you know, he's like Reagan back in the 80s. We knew Reagan was not going to be on our side. And we were glad to see him go. But Reagan looks like a saint next to Trump.
Oh, please. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
You know, and so my thing is, so we can't give up and lose faith that this is going to be just a hard journey that we have to run down, but it can be won. It can be won.
You know,
go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say that we have to believe, you know, as a person of faith, I have to believe that, you know, because there's this eternal struggle until God decides he doesn't want to struggle anymore between good and evil. And one thing, and I believe that we have to, those of us who are on the side of right and light will, you know, that will win out over evil. It may not do it in the immediate, but it's going to do it in the long haul, because if you're a Christian, as I am, God is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. So no matter what these people do, and a lot of these people are doing this stuff for power, but what people fail to realize is the power that you're seeking is fleeting. God's power is everlasting. So you may have power for the short run, but it's the long run that makes the difference. Let me speak on, because Pam, you asked me to talk about ageism and talk about Biden's age. A lot of those people in the Senate right now are older than Biden. Chuck Grassley, older than Biden.
He's 89.
So she just passed. She was older than Biden. There's a number of people in the Senate that are older than Biden is. So when people talk about Biden's age, that's just a talking point, because
it's also them telling on themselves.
Right. Because people have interviewed Biden and said, the man is sharp. He knows his stuff. You know, you can't get anything past him. He's not like Reagan in the second term. Reagan in the second term was a shadow of himself, because he already started showing signs of Alzheimer's. There's no signs of Alzheimer's with Biden. Biden can give a speech extemporaneously. That's one of those $5 college educated words. You know, he can speak off the cuff. He can give you his rationale for why he's trying to do what he's doing. You know, so he's not a perfect man, but he's the right man for these times, because you need to have that stark contrast. And what people don't, a lot of people, again, because they're not students of history, have forgotten about how Hitler came into power. Hitler came into power the same way Trump is trying to come into power. He's using the masses he's using the other, and in this case the migrants are the others. Minorities are the others. To work on, and let's just be frank, to work on white society's fears of this country becoming majority minority,
right,
and certain people losing their privilege in society. And that's really what a lot of this is.
All of this is really and truly the whole tanning of America. So, guys, let's get into another subject that we want to get into. Is about the rolling back of our civil rights and the weaponization of the words woke and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, thought leaders, I would say that DeSantis is the one who spearheaded this whole anti-woke and attack on DEI. He has been masterfully good at it, unfortunately, which in my opinion actually rolled back the civil rights because, you know, nobody gives you anything. They think that, oh, you know, if he had affirmative action, you get all the jobs and other people get excluded. No, not quite. And nor does it work that way in college admissions. If you get in, you still got to swim. You still got to make it when you get in. You just have an opportunity maybe to get in, to be looked at where you were totally overlooked in the past. So with that said, do any of you have examples of less than fair and equitable treatment that you can discuss? Latrice?
I'm going to let Marcia go first. I saw your hand go up.
Marcia. Okay.
Marcia,
I got a great story. And I love telling this story, and it's about my brother, who was also a doctor, Dr. Charles. And my son is also a doctor as well. So anyway, this was a great story. And I love telling the stories, especially to young Black men. My brother and I, we were young when we graduated from Morehouse and Spelman. He got a full ride to medical school, to University of Pennsylvania and to University of Illinois here in Chicago. And he wanted to come back home after graduating from Morehouse. Okay, so he goes to University of Illinois. And his class was close to 200 students. There were only 5 Blacks in my brother's class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They didn't even give him 10%, 5. And all of them were males, okay? Because they couldn't find a Black woman. So anyway, my brother was very low key, you know, nothing really shook him up or anything like that. But he had a white roommate his first year on campus. And he had told us the guy didn't really particularly care for him, but it didn't bother my brother because my brother was focused like Dr. Charles. I got to get my studying in, go to class, pass, and get graduated, right? Okay. So one day he comes over to my parents' house to wash clothes. I'm happy to be there. My mother asks him, how's he doing? My dad asks him, how's he doing? He said, I'm good. And my dad asks him, so are you and your roommate getting along? He said, oh, no, he still doesn't like me. So, you know, like it didn't bother him. And so he said, oh, he said, so my mother said, so how's things going? He said, well, he had an interesting question for me. And so I'm bracing because I know what this question might be. So I said, well, what was the question? He said, Mark, how did you get here at University of Illinois? Was it affirmative action? Okay, I'm about to explode. So he says, well, it could have been, but I think it had more to do with the fact that I had a 3.8 GPA and that I had the highest MCAT score of anybody in our class, which would mean my MCAT score was higher than yours. And with that, he walked out the room with his bag of stuff to go out. Because see, I need to tell kids that so that they know that when people try to look at them in a downward manner, they're scared of your brilliance. And they don't want you to show them up for your brilliance. And that was it. And my brother graduated number 2 in his medical school class.
All right.
So that is a great story. Now I'm going to tell a different story. So I'm gonna keep a real type of person. Pam knows that. We both attended the University of Michigan. it is a no hold barred institution. You earn, when you walk through that door, you have earned that degree. So when I applied to medical school, my grade point average was not the greatest, but people saw something, because when they looked at my MCAT scores and they looked at my grade point average, they're like, this is inconsistent. So people gave me a play. Well, but I didn't get in, but I did get into a program called the Post-Baccalaureate program, which helped me gain admissions to medical school. It was a program to help strengthen your skill set. So once you got into medical school, you would do fine, which I did overall. I had no problems in medical school. So we entered the class with, a lot of the people who came from various backgrounds who, were people of greater means than myself and the majority of my other African American and Latino classmates, because most of us were first generation college grads. But when we started taking those exams, of course, it's a bell-shaped curve. We weren't always the people at the bottom. We were the people in the middle and at the top. So while our credentials may not have been on the same caliber as theirs, because we got the opportunity, we showed that we could do the work, that the grades and the test scores really weren't who we were.
Right.
So I always tell people, either I was smarter than my credentials showed, or they were dumber than their credentials showed.
Like Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein graduated from college with a 1.8 GPA, and yet they think of him as one of the most brilliant men in our history. He had a 1.8. He had a 1.8.
Wow, I never heard that before. Latrice, you got any stories?
Oh man, one of the reasons I had passed the baton was because I knew Marcia and Dr. Charles. They were, I'm not going to say I haven't encountered obstacles. I have, but I'm drawing a blank on a story I would like to share right now, which I shouldn't, because again, I definitely have had experiences where my skill set was underestimated. I guess. Oh God.
On job.
Like, NYU was good to me. Like the Associated Press, not so much. But NY, I guess, you know what? I'll go with AP. When I got there, AP was my first job out of college. And, I remember having a confrontation with a coworker, and I had to remind them that I'm not some bum that walked in off the street. I have my college degree, I have my internships, I have my clips, I have my portfolio, I have the same credentials as everyone else in this newsroom. And if I wasn't doing the job that I was hired to do, there's no way I would have lasted this long. Just like Dr. Charles mentioned about when you walk on the campus at UM in Ann Arbor, again, you got to show and prove. Like, even if you get a full scholarship, the scholarship is contingent upon you maintaining your grades. They're not just giving you money. I don't want to say there's strings attached to the money, but it's not free money. Even though it's a scholarship and you don't have to pay it back, you still have to put in the work. You can get your foot in your door, but what about the rest of the body? So you still have to show and prove. And with DEI and with affirmative action, it wasn't a matter of giving us a handout or anything like that. We still had to show our work in the end. And I think the fact that people have issues with DEI and affirmative action, to me, I always say to people, especially people I butt heads with, don't project your insecurities onto me.
Thank you.
I wish I had that courage when I was younger, but you live and you learn. And now I'm at a point in my life where I have no qualms about setting boundaries about what I will and will not tolerate. And whenever anyone approaches me with that nonsense, I just tell them straight up, don't project your insecurities onto me. Because if you're living your life and doing your thing and you're handling your business, you're not going to have time to concern yourself with what I'm doing or not doing. because you're too busy doing you.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? The reason why affirmative action had to exist is because historically, people have been kept out of academic institutions and out of jobs that they should have been able to access. And historically, we have not been able to access the halls of power, so to speak. And that's all affirmative action is doing, is allowing the opportunity. To everyone's point, you still have to do the work. Like they say in math, you still have to prove the work. And affirmative action has always existed for white society. It's called the Good Old Boys Network.
And legacy of missions.
And write a big check. If you got deep pockets and you write a big check, you can. And the thing about affirmative action, like when that guy asked my brother, had he gotten there because of affirmative action, I said, do I need to go there and explain to him what affirmative action really is? I said, because those who get tapped for affirmative action, they are already at the pinnacle of where they are supposed to be. They are higher and much more, have the wherewithal to be in that particular place. The only reason why they had to tap those certain Black and people of color and women in particular is because the law told them that they had to have a certain number. And see, Dr. King and all of them, they knew the white people wouldn't move unless there was a law that made them do the right thing. It wasn't because they were looking for some Black people to say, hey, you want to go to med school? Hey, you want to go to law school? No, you had to be at the top of your pinnacle for you to be even considered to be an affirmative action person. And that's because anybody who got affirmative action, they were at the top of their game, whether it was at school or whether it was at a job. And they couldn't find no fault in him, because what happened is a lot of those kids who went to college in advanced degrees, like all of us had done, they got it there because of their hard work and their tenacity. They were focused. They weren't going to let anybody get in their way and make sure that they got what they deserved.
But here's the thing to keep in mind, not to cut you off. Even if you get in through those doors, that's still no guarantee of success and happiness. Look at last week with Dr. Candia Bailey, or is it?
Just getting ready to bring it.
Like, here it is. I mean, she's a PhD, so presumably she's the creme de la creme of her field, and yet she's no longer with us because she was in a toxic work environment. So there's still, so even if you, it's like a velvet rope in a nightclub. You get past one velvet rope only to find there's another one. Then there's a second one. Then there's a third. So it's like never ending jump. You're constantly jumping through hoops to prove yourself. And at a point, at least from my perspective and my experience, it's like, okay, why am I doing this to myself? Because like when I was at the AP, again, it wasn't a good experience. And when I got laid off, I was ready to go. I said to my union rep, I was like, look, I gave 7 years of my life to this newsroom. If I have not proven my worth by now, it is never going to happen. So if they want to lay me off, so be it. But I'm not walking away empty-handed. And I got my severance check and kept it moving. And again, like even to tie it back to Dr. Candia Bailey, I've never met the woman, but I can imagine what she had to deal with.
Yeah.
And this goes to like what Dr. Charles was saying earlier about power, how the GOP, they're all about acquiring power. But with power comes responsibility. Right. And they seem very eager to brush that off or overlook that, because it's like, okay, once you obtain this power, what are you doing with it? With power, you can only do two things. You can either uplift or oppress. And I've already seen what the GOP can do. I've always known what they can do.
The challenge right now. That's their struggle right now. That's why this congressional session of Congress is faltering, because they wanted the power, but they don't know. But they don't know what to do with it. They're fighting amongst themselves.
They have no plan.
Because everybody, if they're like crabs in a barrel, because they all want and meanwhile the country is suffering because there's no legislation being done. They said that during this last congressional session, I mean, meaning the last year,
Right.
they have only passed 20 bills. 20. That's an all-time low for any Congress in terms of getting anything done. This is such an ineffectual Congress, it's not even funny.
And I want to say one more thing about academia. And we all saw what happened to Dr. Claudine Gay at the beginning of the year. And of course, this has come to boomerang on Bill Ackman and his wife, who was probably minding her business and living her life, and now she's caught in the maelstrom of his nonsense. But the thing is that, again, we're constantly proving ourselves. I mean, Dr. Gay, I mean, I'm not familiar with her resume and all the things she had to do to get that position and all the things she had to go through in her years in academia, only for have it to end like that. And it's like, for us Black women, we're tired.
We're tired. Particular, and you just have to make sure that you stand tall and straight and don't let them push you over, and that's what you need to do. You can't.
You're wrong. You need that. You're not wrong, but the thing is, you need a support system, whether it's from management, whether it's your peers. And like right now, I transferred to criminal court a few months ago, and so far I'm doing okay there. I don't have any complaints. But like any Black woman, you find yourself in a new work environment and you're asking yourself, can I trust anyone here? Should I trust anyone? How long will it be before the other shoe drops? Like, that's no way to live. And yet we Black women, at least as a Black woman, I can't speak for everybody else, but we have to constantly navigate that all the time, and it's exhausting.
Well, Black men have to do that too. The one thing that keeps me going, and I know I keep circling back to faith, is having a strong faith and having a strong spiritual connection with the higher power. I'm not gonna with the higher power, because it is really what helps me to be able to carry on every day, especially in the face of all this negativity. That's part of the reason why I go to church every Sunday, because as my priest said, I got to be armed. I got to get armored up for the week to be able to deal with all this out here. So so I can help to be a example to people and to be a support to people. So that's why I got to get armored up too.
I saw your commentary. I just want to point out you were very on point. I agree with you 100% about that affirmative action comment. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. And you know what? I was thinking about all those Black people who went to school in the late 40s, 50s, and 60s and stuff. And my dad told me this. He said when it was time, when he and my mom went to college in the 50s, they didn't have a test. You didn't have to take an admissions test like an SAT or ACT test to get into college. He said it was only when the 60s came about and they had more and more Black people going to college. Somebody came up and said, we need a test.
Right.
We
need a test.
I heard
and then that was their way of trying to figure out how they could weed Black people from going into college.
Yeah.
And that was
another thing too, like in this great state of New York and several other states in this union, people didn't have to pay tuition.
Right.
They didn't have to pay tuition.
Right.
And my dad said the HBCUs that did take their students in, they were going to make sure they were going to get passed, whether they had the money or not. And they got them through. They were not going to let those kids falter because of money issue. And so, like I said, in the 60s, they decided that they needed a test, and that was their way of weeding out Black people. It didn't work. It worked for a little while, and then Black people said, you know what? Getting an education won't hurt me. And then more and more Black people start going to get their education, and they went to HBCUs, and they went to schools that were predominantly white, and they had to make it through. My aunt, she got her master's and PhD at University of Michigan, and she was one of 2 Blacks in the early 70s, the mid 70s, to get her to get her degree. And she said it was horrible.
I know it was.
And
I can imagine, because like this was touched on in Hidden Figures. If you remember the three main characters, Janelle Monáe's character, she was suing for the right to attend graduate school.
Yeah.
Like that I imagine the millennials and Gen Z, they can't wrap their head around that. But again, it just goes to show you for how far that we have come, there's still so far to go. Because
I used to wonder how my aunt made it, because you had only one, you and another person?
Only the Lord. It had to be. But we got to get to our last subject of the night, and it's the legacy organizations. Okay, I've had several people ask me, literally, where are the leaders? Because they're like looking to someone like, where is the movement of how we're going to get people to vote, how we're going to get people encouraged to vote? Because, you know, church attendance is down. Okay, church attendance is down. And so all of this makes me wonder what is going on with our legacy organizations. I don't belong to the NAACP. I do know that every now and then I hear about our local NAACP. I know that Dawn in the chat is the president, the first female president of the NAACP and her rural community that she lives in. Let me find Dawn on here. Dawn, if you hear Dawn Daly Mack, she is she's the one who said that she feels like she's among friends. She's from Illinois. I cannot remember the county she's in here in North Carolina, but it's a rural county. And she has become the president of its NAACP, the first female ever, right? So the NAACP, the National Urban League, and Reverend Sharpton's NAN Network, National Action Network. Do any of you belong? Do any of you have any active goings on with your local chapters or whatever in these legacy organizations?
I do not. And to your question, I think one of the reasons, like, when you ask where the leaders are, if you notice in like with younger generations, the movement, they have stressed having the movement decentralized. Black Lives Matter comes to mind, how it's a decentralized movement. Whether or not that's a good thing, again, I'm gonna leave that conversation for another day. But I think that's why you're not seeing leaders step up right now. Like even on these talk shows and these podcasts, there's no consensus on who should speak for us. I've seen on Twitter there was a lot of backlash that Joy Reid had Charlemagne the God on her show, and there was also backlash about something Tiffany Cross may or may not have said. I didn't see it, so I can't speak on that. But I think the fact that there's no consensus right now is why you're not seeing the legacy groups in action right now.
I saw that segment on Joy Reid's show. I didn't see anything that any of them said that would be, something that anybody would be upset about. I mean, but now all of them did have some qualms about certain things that they thought that Joe Biden should do. But each one of them said that they were going to support Joe Biden no matter what. Mm-hmm. And they made that very clear. They didn't like the fact that a lot of things that Black people as a whole might want to take place in regards to the situations and the holdups that Black people have been wanting for decades has not appeared with him. But they said they'd rather have somebody who has a conscience than somebody who would willingly shoot his opponent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you think about that, because I'm thinking if this man don't mind shooting another white man, he ain't got no problem trying to figure out how he's gonna roll you over with a truck.
But we have to remember that in 2015, 2016, what did the man say? He said, I could go in the middle of New York City and shoot somebody and nothing will happen to me. So that was a precursor to what's happening now. That's why all people need to pay close attention. He's telegraphing to you what he would do and what his plans are. People need to look up fascism, look up the definition. Make sure you understand it, because when people are saying this man has fascist behavior, you need to understand what fascism means.
Right.
Okay. He look who the people who he admires. He admires people like
authoritarian figures.
Putin, all authoritarian figures. So people need to pay attention to that. In regards to what I think is happening with the legacy organizations is that, unfortunately, the legacy organizations are sitting out here, probably more at the grassroots level, trying to deal with police violence against people of color, discrimination efforts, all this stuff. So it's really diffuse. So there is no one leader because of the fact that we have so many legacy organizations. We forgot about the National Council on Negro Women.
Now, I do hear of women going to those various meetings and things like that. I guess what it is, I don't hear any loud, resounding messaging. The other big thing is that all of these horrible cases that we see with police departments throughout the country of things that have happened, all you hear is I'm calling Ben Crump, right? Like he's the 911 guy that the NAACP Legal Defense Fund used to be.
Right.
And he's a private entity. And I love Ben Crump. Nothing wrong with it. But don't you remember a time when we would call the National NAACP Defense Fund? I
was just gonna say, I think that probably what my suggestion, what needs to happen is that all the major legacy organizations need to come together for maybe a summit so that they can all, so that they can come together and formulate one voice to take a stand on different issues.
That would be helpful. Terry Allen, who's been in the chat, he's up on stage. Terry had to say something because that typing was wearing him out. Plus, he got his. So, Terry, what you got to say? Terry? Oh, no. Terry.
He's frozen.
I think he froze.
Oh.
He's
frozen. After all of that. Oh, shucks. Okay, let me see what Kay had something. Our people perish for the lack of knowledge. We have to listen, watch, research, study, pay attention. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I want to say that about the woke situation. My dad used to say, my mom and my dad used to say, woke was something that Black people used to tell their children back in the 40s and even beyond. Wow. That was their way of telling their children, when you go out there, stay alert. Make sure you know what's around you. So stay woke. And my dad said his mother used to say that to them all the time, stay woke.
So it's nothing new under the sun. Terry, are you with us? Terry. He froze up again. He was moving just a minute ago. Terry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, thank you, guys. It's great to be around such powerful people. I'm going to leave with this. I want to throw these wake-up calls here. Sister Davis, you kind of scared me earlier when you said you might vote for Trump. I thought, well, maybe she's just posturing us to get angry and get a conversation going.
No, I never said that.
Okay, well, I think we need to be very clear. We need to be very clear, and we have enough. The truth is hidden in plain sight. And I'm gonna go back to roots, where the man beat Black folks. So he said Toby, and then the guy leaned on and said, "Your name Kunta Kinte." And people say, "Why did affirmative action die? And why is DEE on the deathbed too?" It's because we got too many Tobys running it, not enough Kunta Kintes in power. Okay, we have
thank you.
Okay,
all right. We are $1 trillion consumer economy. We should be a $1.21 trillion wealth building economy. We're still getting paid and spending 99% of our dollars with somebody else. We won't even let our own black businesses thrive because we won't do business with them after they messed us up one time. You know, and here's the thing about, and I'm gonna say this real quickly, but here's the thing about the president of Harvard, Gay. You can't fight the opposition against her with a Toby mentality. Okay, so you have to know the game. You can't sit up there and say, because I'm president of Harvard, I can play the same game as everybody else. You're gonna have to come with your A game to that end game. And she didn't have it because the Republicans had a plan. And people talk about, I like what you said, Marcy, about eating our own. We need to understand one concept, and that's called solidarity. Our ancestors knew solidarity. Our ancestors knew solidarity. We didn't take sides. We won, and then we divvied it up later. We can't sit up here and say this. So we need a mindset to know that it's not about being a Democrat or Republican. It's about, as black folks, we still decide who wins. Period. That's how.
Well, I just want to set the record straight. I never said, I never thought, and I never even implied that I would vote for the former occupant of the White House. Absolutely not. As I tweeted on December 5th, 2023, and I stand by today, if November turns out to be a replay of 2020, I am voting for Biden. That is what I said. So I'm going to be clear on that.
I'm going to play that back, but okay, here's another thing I want to say.
I have it in writing. It's in writing. I under no circumstances will I vote for Trump.
I got you, girl. We got that 3 times. I'm sure we got it. Dr. Williams, Dr. Charles, I'm going to talk to you. I believe in faith, but we need to have a faith that we don't see on good times when you roll over there and pray to that white Jesus. All right? We need to have a faith that is steeped in that fact that Moses looked more like Morgan Freeman than Charlton Heston. So our faith has to be powerful, because back in the day, our faith put on a Montgomery boycott that weakened the economy in that city. Our faith taught us to be organized so that when they came for us, my grandmother says this quite well, and that's why I have that Big Mama column, don't come for me unless I send for you. And so when they came for us in the Montgomery boycott, we packed up and left. They walked in that building, we were already gone. And we bought limousines, buses, and we paid people to fight for equality. Where the okie doke comes in and where we drink the Kool-Aid is, once they said, oh, y'all can get back on the bus, we should say, that's okay, we got our own. Thank you. We don't have that ownership in our faith and our belief in our faith. Our faith don't look like us. It looks like something they manufactured. And all that suffering, I look back at the Bible, the Jesus I know went into the temple and drove out the money changers. He didn't turn cheeks.
And let me be clear. I attend one of the oldest African-American Episcopal churches in the country. So the Jesus I pray to and I worship looks like me. They don't look like that picture that used to be up on grandma's wall. everything in my church.
Jesus I know is a badass.
Right. Everybody I know, all the Jesuses I know look like me.
The one last thing I want to say is that the okie doke develop our trust factor. That's why Ms. Davis is talking about who do I need to talk to, who I talk to. We don't have a trust factor because we got too many Tobys in business and all the Kunta Kintes can't get the job. So we have to have a trust factor where we use our trust factor to build the trust in. Tomorrow, if we went around and did not use public transportation, did not go to the mall, there would be an economic shift in America. But if we don't know that in our mindset, we can't do it. DEI is about putting some Kunta Kintes in there so you can make the infrastructure. It's not about I'm the new president, or I'm the new vice president of belonging. You don't even know what belonging is. All right. So we go in and change the infrastructure and let people see the profitability. And I'll tell you why. This is one good example. Alberta Cover never did black hair care products until they found out how much money we were spending on it. Okay. And overnight, it became the #1 black hair products revenue over my company I work for, Brown & Brothers Restaurant, because they made a black product. And we didn't have no problem stopping buying from black-owned companies and going there because our mindset put us there.
Nice.
So our big problem is DEI is our mindset. We have to have a solidarity and all spokes on the wheel. So Republicans put in a 15-year plan They in year 11 right now. And one was to infiltrate the school district so CRT could win. One was to set up the Supreme Court so that we could be a leaning court. They could do it. There are no, and then the last thing I want to say, marketing is what you say about yourself. PR is what other people say about you. Biden needs marketing. Biden needs marketing, and he needs to do that. He's talking about expanding the court. He's also talking about creating an out clause, because we have a Supreme Court that nobody can get fired from. It's sort of like the meteorologist. Whether wrong, they keep your job. All right. So we got to go in and do this, and we got to know that our power is local. But we got too many okey dokes and Tobys running around, and until we can power those Kunta Kintes, we got to get the job done. I appreciate the gift that you have given us. I appreciate Pam's platform, but you got to, as we say before, Pam, you got to have some skin in the game to win the game.
Terry and I are colleagues in the National Association of Black Journalists. He's the chair and I'm the co-chair of the media related task force. So he's my buddy. We talk all the time. And I was cracking up at all of his witty sayings because I know what Terry's going to say. He's out of Dallas. Look, I got you guys from all over the country. New York, Dallas, Michigan, Illinois. Okay. All right.
I want to say, you guys can join us in Dallas on February 24th for the media-related PR campus. We're going to talk PR power, because we have more power than we know, but we got to come in with an ownership mindset. You got to think of yourself as your DNA is the DNA of people who built pyramids, not people who escaped from plantations.
That's right.
Thank you.
And I like the whole thing about, you know how we used to say slaves all the time? They were enslaved people. They were not slaves. They were enslaved people.
We have to change the language. We have to get in the game. And in order to get that game, we have to consciously invest in ourselves, education, economic. We got to own our own ownership. My old neighborhood didn't get better until white folks moved back in there. We got to stop that. And I stopped it. I said, you're not taking this neighborhood back unless the people who inhabit it get to invest in the same condos y'all putting down on that river. And so we have more power than we know. We have more power than politically, since this is a politically based show. We don't have to worry about what Republicans and Democrats done. It is our vote that we're the ones who make the people win. So we just sit back and let them know what can you deliver, because we're gonna vote. We're the over the top vote. And enough of us to put nobody in office, but there's enough of us to make who we want to win. And we don't even tell each other that. We criticizing, then celebrate.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you guys, I have enjoyed you so much. It's now 9:12. And all that good stuff. The chat was lit. Y'all were lit. We're all doing well. I'm so thankful. Ron, my frat, much love to you. And Terry, we got a conference call anyway. And he's and Latrice, always, and Marcia, always in our political group. I appreciate you guys so much. So let's wave everybody off, guys. Good night.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks.